Welcome back to SeoulScreen, the place where we talk Korean films not just as movies, but as experiences we laugh with, argue about, and sometimes rethink days after the credits roll. All right, today I want to talk about a film that genuinely surprised me in the best way possible. I went in expecting a light action comedy, maybe a few chuckles here and there. What I didn't expect was to laugh out loud multiple times, all the way until the very end. We're talking about the 2025 Korean film Boss, directed by Ra Hee Chan. And yes, I'm saying this up front, this movie knows exactly what it's doing. Now before we dive deep, let me ask you something right away. When you hear Mafia movie, what comes to your mind? Serious men in dark suits? Power struggles? Betrayals? Tragic endings? Because Boss takes all of that and flips it upside down. Instead of people desperately wanting power, this movie asks a much funnier question. What if nobody actually wants to be the boss? That premise alone already feels refreshing. The story kicks off after the sudden death of a crime syndicate leader. Naturally, you'd expect chaos, ambition, backstabbing, but instead, we're introduced to 3 candidates who are supposed to fight for the top position, and 2 of them are doing everything in their power to avoid it. That reversal is where the comedy really starts working. We have Soon Tae, played by Jo Woo Jin, a man who looks like he was born to be a gangster but is absolutely done with that life. All he wants is to retire peacefully and run a Chinese restaurant franchise with his wife. Honestly, the way he talks about retirement feels painfully relatable. If you've ever dreamed about quitting a stressful job and opening a small business, you'll probably connect with him immediately. Then there's Kang Pyo, played by Jung Kyung Ho, and he might be my personal favorite. This guy would rather become a tango dancer than a crime boss. Let that sink in for a second. In any other gangster film, that sentence would never exist. His absurdity isn't just for laughs, though. There's something oddly sincere about his desire to escape violence and pursue something beautiful, even if it looks ridiculous to everyone else. And finally, we have Pan Ho, played by Park Ji Hwan. He's the only one who actually wants to be the boss. He's ambitious, loud, confident, and completely unqualified. And that's where the movie becomes ruthless in the funniest way. Every attempt he makes to prove himself just exposes how incompetent he really is. Watching him fail isn't cruel, it's comedic, because the film never pretends he deserves the position in the first place. What I really appreciated is how the humor doesn't rely on cheap jokes alone. Yes, there's slapstick. Yes, there are ridiculous situations. But a lot of the comedy comes from frustration. These characters are stuck in a system they no longer believe in. They sabotage each other, not because they want power, but because they want out. And that creates a kind of humor that feels both chaotic and strangely human. There are scenes involving sabotaged food ingredients, disastrous dance auditions, and strategic plans that completely backfire. Each one escalates the tension while somehow making everything more ridiculous. And I found myself thinking, this shouldn't work, but it absolutely does. If you're familiar with Korean cinema, you'll notice the references right away. The film clearly plays with ideas from Election, Infernal Affairs, Extreme Job, and even Nameless Gangster. But instead of copying them, Boss parodies them with affection. It feels like the director understands the genre deeply enough to joke about it without disrespecting it. One thing I want to talk about is the pacing. The film runs for 99 minutes, and honestly, that feels just right. There's no dragging, no unnecessary filler. From the opening sequence, which almost feels like a flashy music video with fast cuts and bold energy, the film tells you exactly what kind of ride you're in for. Even though Boss is a comedy, it doesn't abandon action. The fight scenes are well choreographed, the chase sequences are energetic, and the tension is real enough to keep you engaged. What makes it special is how the action and comedy coexist. The fights don't interrupt the jokes, and the jokes don't ruin the fights. That balance is hard to pull off, and this film nails it. The cinematography by Yang Hyun-suk deserves a shout-out here. The use of dim lighting mixed with dynamic camera movement gives the film a stylish edge. It doesn't look cheap or lazy, which is something action comedies sometimes struggle with. Visually, Boss feels polished, confident, and playful. Now let's talk about performances, because this cast understood the assignment perfectly. Jo Woo Jin as Soon Tae brings this beautiful mix of cynicism and warmth. He looks tired of the criminal world, but not bitter. His chemistry with Hwang Woo-sil Haif, who plays his wife, adds so much heart to the film. Their scenes together are funny, yes, but also grounding. They remind us that behind the absurdity, these characters want normal lives. Park Ji Hwan gives Pan-ho an almost cartoonish energy, but never crosses the line into annoyance. That's actually impressive. It would have been easy to make him unbearable, but instead, he becomes someone you laugh at and slightly pity at the same time. And Jung Kyung Ho, honestly, he steals every scene he's in. His physical comedy, his facial expressions, the way he moves his body when he dances or reacts to stress, it's all perfectly timed. If you enjoy actors who fully commit to absurd roles without irony, you're going to love him here. Oh Dal-soo also adds flavor as in Seoul, playing his role with that familiar presence that longtime Korean film fans will recognize instantly. He doesn't dominate the film, but he enriches it. Now, is Boss perfect? Not entirely. Some jokes are deeply rooted in Korean cultural context, and international viewers might miss a few layers. Certain wordplays and social references might not land as hard if you're not familiar with them. But I'd argue that the physical comedy and situational humor are strong enough to carry the film regardless. What I personally loved most is the film's message, even if it's delivered lightly. Boss subtly criticizes power structures, ambition, and the idea that leadership is always desirable. Sometimes, the people who want power the most are the least capable of handling it. And sometimes, the ones who would be best at it are too exhausted or disillusioned to care. That idea feels surprisingly relevant, not just in crime stories, but in real life too. And that's why this movie sticks with you after the laughter fades. So, would I recommend Boss? Absolutely. I'd even say it's one of the most entertaining Korean action comedies of 2025. It's smart without being pretentious, funny without being cruel, and energetic without being exhausting. But now I want to hear from you. Do you prefer gangster films that are serious and gritty? Or do you enjoy this kind of parody that pokes fun at the genre? If you were in this movie, would you fight to become the boss? Or would you run away like Kang Pyo and chase a completely different dream? Let me know in the comments. And also, tell me this. Which character do you think represents real life the most? The tired Soon Tae, the dreamy Kang Pyo, or the overly confident Pan-ho? If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to support SeoulScreen by liking the video and sharing it with someone who loves Korean films as much as we do. Until next time, keep watching, keep questioning, and remember, sometimes the funniest stories come from the darkest places.